Today we're talking about automation data stuff here. So Pro Tools automation, basically what is automation? Automation allows you to record, edit, and play volume, mute, pan, and other parameter changes into the track so that they will happen automatically during playback. So what does that mean? What that means is if I got my track here, let's say today I'm using my Sharp Hand Joe drums because it's a good one to use for this. So I got my drums, and everybody kind of remembers me doing the drum stuff. We did this a few lessons ago. And if I want my drums to slowly get softer over time, just to kind of slowly turn down over time. Well, in the old days, before we had Pro Tools, before we had automation, stuff like that, I would have to literally have my hand on the fader, on the mixer, and turn it down slowly over time. That's just what you would have to do. There was no such thing as doing this automatically. But nowadays, what I can do is I can have Pro Tools go ahead and I can record this fader movement into Pro Tools so it can turn it down over time. So let me just show you how that works. I'm going to go ahead over here and put my track automation mode into let's put it into touch mode. So this says auto touch. Puppies, come on. Chill. All right. So this says touch, and I just hit play. And then I just go through and I just turn this down. And you can see I'm turning it down. You can hear it getting softer and softer and softer. And right, nice little fade out there. Okay, it came back up at the end, and I'll explain why it came back up at the end. But then what I do is I go back over here, and we can see in my screen, it actually recorded all that movement in here automatically for me. See, it recorded all that. These little dots, see this line here? This line is showing me what my fader is actually doing. And I'm just going to go over here, put it into slip, and I'm going to delete these points here so it just stays soft over there. So in here, I did the movement with my mouse, and you can also use a controller to do this as well. I did the movement with my mouse, and it recorded it into Pro Tools. Okay. My dog is going nuts because she doesn't want to be in here. She doesn't want to learn about Pro Tools. I think my dog is an FL Studio type of thing. I don't think my dog is a Pro Tools dog. Right, dog? Are you FL instead of Pro Tools? Or are you Ableton Live? Yeah. All right. So that's automation. That's automation in a nutshell. There's more to it than this, obviously, and we're going to learn about that right now. We're going to get deeper into this automation stuff, but that's really what automation does. And you can do this with all kinds of stuff. It doesn't have to be the volume. It can be like an effect. It can be your panning. It can be a send automation to send stuff, to send data to a track, like a send effect. So you can have all this different stuff in there, and you can have it all going at the same time. So you can really, this is really where, if you listen to like dance music and transitions and you hear like things like the delays start getting louder and things get weirder as over time, that's really all automation. It's actually not that hard to do. You just kind of have to do it. Hi, pups. Hi. You just kind of have to go in and do it, and you have to know how to do it. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of all this stuff here. So my automation lane goes back to normal. Okay, so I just got rid of everything. So now there's no automation on here. If I hit play, it's going to just kind of go and play and not do any automation. There's no volume fade or anything like that. So let's look at our different automation lanes. Now, each type of automation has an automation lane. That's right over here on the left side of each track. This is an aux track. So the aux track, all it has is automation lanes. Remember, you cannot record audio into an aux track. An aux track is just for passing audio through. It's not for actually recording audio. So the aux track does not have anything other than automation lanes. That's all it has. Whereas with an audio track, if we go look at my audio track here, the audio track actually shows me the audio. This part over here is our audio. And if I go down here and here, let me just have these both on my screen here. So this one here, if I go down, I have these different views here where I can view. It's right beneath the mute and solo buttons of the track. Down here, it says volume, mute, pan left, pan right. These are all automation lanes. Whereas if I go up here to my my audio track, up here it's got all this different stuff we can look at. We got blocks, we got playlists, we've got analysis, we've got warp. This is all stuff we've talked about in the past. We've got waveform. Then beneath waveform, we've got volume, mute, pan left, pan right, send, and then in there they've got different things for send and a bus, send A and send B, level and mute, all that different stuff is in there as well. So depending on what you've got going on with your track, it's going to show you different stuff in your automation. All right, so let's go back here and look at the notes. Okay, and that's all described right here. So to see your automation lanes right here in the notes, it shows you here. The top parts of your audio track is the non-automation views. Pups, hey, come on over here, Pups. What are you doing? Come here. It's your non-automation views, and then the green stuff, the stuff that's down here, and the blocks down here is your automation views. And these only appear when you've got track sends or plugin parameters auto-enabled. This one down here, this little box down here, and I'm going to show you that in just a second. That's not always going to be there. Volume, mute, and pan will always be there in your automation. So if we go over here, look at this. If we click on this, we can see volume, mute, pan, left, pan, right, all that stuff is always going to be there. But if I go look at this one here, let's go look at this one, see what we got going on with this. This one actually has some send. Let me turn off these sends here for these so we can see something that doesn't have any kind of sense. I got automation here. I got some, turn off that one, no send, and no send on this one here. And so what I'm going to show you here is that now that I've turned off some of that stuff, this one no longer has the same as this one here. Check this out. See, this one has your send, bus, send A and send B. This one does not have send A and send B. It's just got volume, mute, pan right down here. Okay, that's just because you can only have automation on things that are automatable, and this one doesn't have any sends going on. Let me just pull up my sends over here. Sends A through up. There we go. There we go. Boom. Okay, so that's why we can see there's nothing going on here, whereas this one has stuff going on. And this one I think actually has, does it have some automation happening on it? No. Oh, it's set for pre, that's why. Okay, actually I'm gonna turn that off. I don't want that for any of these tracks. All right, cool. Once I do that, you can see I got rid of the send B, and it goes down here and it gets rid of send B. So send A is there, send B is not there. My dog is really upset about being in this room with me right now. All right. So there are two ways to get automation data into Pro Tools. One way is you can record it in, and the other way is you can draw it in. And the same thing applies for editing the data. Once I've got some data in there, I can record it in, or I can draw it in later on. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about recording in automation first, and then we're going to talk about drawing the automation. So as I said before, there's automation modes. There's different automation modes. We can get to the different track automation modes right here. See where it says read, and you can see the read here on all these tracks. Right here, read, right? That's where our automation is. So that's our read write mode. That's our automation mode selector. So if I click on it, they're all the same for all the tracks. Off just turns the automation off for the track. If you've got automation written on there, it's just going to ignore the automation. Read, it's going to read automation that's in the track. Luna, puppers. Come on, babes. Come on over here. She's so upset. You got touch mode, latch mode, and write. Now, touch and latch are very similar. There's only one little difference between these two. So, and these are the ones I use most of the time. Write mode is similar-ish, but there's actually a lot more going on with it. Pups. Sorry. So there's a lot more going on with write mode here. So you've got touch, latch, and write, and these are the ways that we can record automation in, but they are a little bit different outside of just how they kind of basically work. All right, So in here, let's take a look at this stuff here. So we got read, touch, latch, and write. Read mode, Pro Tools follows the automation data written on the track. That's the one where you're normally going to be. And then down here, you got your different record modes. You got touch, which only records the parameter you're touching. It stops recording when you stop touching the parameter. Latch mode, which I said is very similar to touch, is only records the parameter you're touching, but it continues recording when you stop touching that parameter. So as soon as you start recording a certain parameter in latch mode, it's going to keep recording that parameter. Is if you're not even touching it, it's just going to keep recording it. Whereas with touch mode, it's going to stop recording it. Now, the way I think about these is that touch mode is like safer than latch mode. Touch mode, it stops recording as soon as you're done. Latch mode, it continues recording. So if you have something that you want to record over a bunch of automation, you can use latch mode to record over any kind of written automation. But if you don't want to do that, then definitely use touch mode. Touch mode is the one that I use most of the time. It's the safest one because after I use touch mode, if I forget that I'm recording or whatever, if I get busy and I can't stop recording that one parameter or whatever, touch mode will go back to what's previously written, which is usually what I want. If I don't want it, what I can do, if I want to get rid of a bunch of automation data, I can just delete it by hand later, which we're going to talk about. Then write mode records all available parameters simultaneously. The difference is, let me zoom in on these. The difference is touch and latch only record the parameter that you are touching. Now, if you have a controller, you can actually record multiple parameters like with your fingers because you got two hands, right? But with write mode, it's going to record all available parameters. Now, there are ways to kind of safeguard certain things or make sure that certain parameters aren't recorded over, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But write mode is the most destructive. It's the most destructive record mode that you have. Okay, touch and latch are only going to record basically one thing or two things at a time. Write mode is going to record everything unless you turn certain things off. Okay, so that's how this stuff works here with your record modes. And then once you're done recording, you put it back into read mode and you hit go. Now, one thing I do want to bring up right here is that to record automation data, you do not need to use the record button up here. The record button is for recording audio or recording MIDI, not for recording automation. If you're recording automation, you're not going to hit that record button. So you have to be a little bit careful and be aware of what's happening, because if I put something into write mode by accident, now it's automatically going to be recording over everything. So I want to be really aware of what's happening with that. I'm going to go here and look at my automation window just to make sure, yeah, okay, good. We got everything going on here. So write mode in this case is going to record everything, which for me right now, what that means is it's going to record volume, mute, and pan. But if I were to let's put this back in read. If I were to go down here to this one, my overhead stereo, and put it into write mode, this one here is going to record volume, mute, pan left, pan right, and my send, bus send A, bus 1 and 2, level, mute, pan left, pan right. It's a lot of things that it's recording over. So you want to be really careful about that. And so, as I said before, generally I don't use write mode. I am going to show you a really cool feature of write mode what I do recommend using write mode, but a little bit later. Right now we're gonna just not use write mode. We're just gonna focus on touch and latch and kind of do everything from there. All right. So okay, so let me just show you that one more time with the volume fade here. I'm going to go down here to my overall drum group. And we'll go in here and we'll do a little volume fade here. I'm just going to go ahead and hit go. It's in touch mode. Let's put it into latch mode. And I'm just going to do a volume fade. Go over here to this one and let's listen to that. Let's do that one more time. I'm going to start pulling it down. I'm going to do a little bit faster than last time before. Right, there we go. And now, as long as I'm playing, if I go back over to this other screen, you can see it put a red line in here. And that red line shows me what I'm recording. If I wanted to do a volume up again, I can just click on this volume over here and put it back up. And I can see where it was originally, and I can see where it is right now. So if I want to go up a little bit further, there we go. So now it's basically where it was. Okay. And now once I hit stop, I've got all this automation data. You can see all these little points in here. These little points, these are called data points right here. And I can mouse over them, and I can move them around. I can do all sorts of stuff. Or can I erase them like I can with, okay, I can't do that right now, but all right. So we've got that there. If I want to delete these, I can just use my selector tool. I'm using my smart tool, which allows me to like mouse over things and whatnot. But if I go in here with my smart tool and hit delete, I can delete all of these in here. Okay, we'll come back to that though. So right now I've got this automation in here that I wrote in here. I've got it fades down, fades up, and you can see I didn't quite get to the right place here. Almost. What I can do is I can just copy this. I just highlight it, hit Command C, and paste it in right here. Like that, and I can just delete all this other stuff like this, and I can get up to that point there. Again, we'll come back and talk about that, but I just kind of want to give you a preview of like what we are able to do with this. Before we come back to that though, let's just talk a little bit more about write versus touch versus latch mode. So the big difference here, as I said before, touch mode, it stops recording once I've stopped touching whatever parameter I'm recording. Whereas latch mode will continue recording. So in here, if I got some volume automation in blue, the original automation here is in blue, and I'm like in pink is what I'm overwriting with it. And then I let go right here, the parameter is going to go back to following the original automation. Whereas down here, once I let go in pink, where I get here and I let go, it continues to write in a straight line at that point where I let go. So let me just show you how that works. Over here, we got this. I'm going to do the same thing. Let's use touch mode first. I'm going to use my volume here, and it starts to fade down. I'm like, oh wait, I don't want it to fade down. I want it to come back up, go down, up, and I let go. And you can see it goes down to follow this black line. If I touch it again, right, you can see it's now going to follow this black line here. So I can go in here. If I hit stop, you can see where it followed my black line initially, and then I was touching it, and then it stopped touching it, and it's going back to the black line, and I did some stuff, and I stopped touching it, and it follows the black line again, right? Whereas with latch mode, let's just check out latch mode now. I move it down to here and I let go, and you can see it's writing a red line straight across. And if I touch it again, it's writing a red line straight across. Now, when I hit stop, it stops writing the automation and it goes back to whatever my original automation was right here. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with this. Let's go ahead and just check out our automation on the kick drum, for example. Let me go ahead and delete all this. I'm just going to highlight it all, hit delete, and the automation goes away. Just make sure there's no automation in the beginning. Good. I'm going to go ahead and put this back to read mode so we're not going to accidentally overwrite any automation. Let's go to our kick drum here, and let's do some automation stuff on the kick drum. I'm going to do my mute button here for the kick drum. So let's go ahead and just put this into I guess latch mode, whatever. I guess it doesn't really matter with the mute button. I'm going to hit go. Right, there we go. If I want to go look at it, I can just go here and you see, check this out, how your mute is now orangey yellow, right? I click on that. What that means is that I have automation written into this one here. It's bold and it's like orangey yellow. All the other ones are white. Well, volume, pan, left, pan, right, all the sends are down here are white. That means that they don't have any automation in them. This orangey yellow one means that it has automation in it. So I go over here and I say, oh, okay, there it is. I can listen to it. Okay, now notice how I didn't touch anything. I didn't put it back into read mode. So this just stays on latch. If I don't touch anything, it's not going to do any kind of more automation stuff. So we're good to go. But this latch mode here, if I hit this mute button, well, that means it's going to actually overwrite what's written here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And I can reverse some of these. Right? And now you can see I just changed my muting in here. Okay. So that's how we can use automation stuff. That's a pretty way, I think it's pretty easy to understand how automation works. You can do automation for every track. You can do automation for all your different parameters, all that different stuff there. So let's go and talk about how to do automation by hand. This is actually pretty easy to do, especially if you're using the Smart tool. So there's a couple of different ways we can draw in the automation. Let's see in here. Or we'll come back to that part there. If we want to edit our automation or draw it in, there's a couple of different ways we can do it. One, we can just grab our pencil tool here, pencil tool, and draw it in. So with this is a mute. So it's either on or off. So I'm just going to draw it in, and I can just put a point in here, and I can just put the point, and we're good to go. Excuse me. I can just go and put it in, boop, like that. And we are good to go. See, I'm just clicking, and the mute is really easy because the mute is just either on or off. It's nothing fancy about the mute, and I can go through and I can listen to it. You can hear that kick drum, right? If I wanted to use a volume instead of a mute, let me just undo that stuff. There we go. If I want to use volume, volume's a little bit different because volume, I actually have to draw it in. But I can draw it in down there. And whoops, hold on, let's put a point right there. Volume, I do volume a different way. I'm just kind of showing you how we can do this. Like this. And I can put some volume stuff in, and I could do a fade up over here like that. And that works. It's not like pretty at all, but here's what it would sound like. And now it's gonna fade up here. And I can actually do volume while it's playing. You can hear how it faded up over time, and I could go down here to my drums overall, and I could say, okay, my drums overall, I'm gonna put a volume in here like this and pull it back up like that. So you're gonna hear it get softer over time. Right, so there's your volume, and it's all well and good. I'm going to go ahead and just hit Command Z to undo all this stuff here, and that's our pencil tool here. Now, the pencil tool, what's cool about the pencil tool is the pencil tool actually has different shapes in here that you can use to draw in your automation. This is awesome. It used to be that this was a really big selling point for me for Pro Tools. Nowadays, Ableton Live has a way to draw in shapes into the automation as well. So I don't need to do this in Pro Tools anymore. Like it used to be like, oh, Pro Tools is the only one that had this. Now Ableton Live has it too. And we will talk about how to utilize it in Ableton Live later when we're talking about Ableton Live. But here's how you draw in shapes using the pencil tool. First of all, a really easy one to use is the line here, and I just grab it and it just puts a straight line. And you notice it's a lot more elegant than what I was doing before. It doesn't have all of the craziness that we had before, like this, and I can just put this line in. So you know, it's pretty cool. Just listen to that kick drum, fading up and down on the kick drum. right? And that's because it's following all these automation lines that I just put in. Also, if I wanted to make my kick drum go in and out, let's do this with the drums overall, actually, because it's a lot more impressive with the drums overall. I'm going to go down here to my drum group, and we're going to go over here to my grid. I'm going to change my grid to eighth notes. And now I'm going to put this pencil tool into let's do a square. And this is like a different wave shape. And what I'm going to do is go in here. I'm going to click on the bottom and drag it up. There we go. And you can see it's adding in a square wave right here. Now listen to this. It's like a little gate. Like a little, some effects. There's like an effect in a lot of different things called a trance gate or a techno gate or something like that, dance gate or rhythmic gate. It does this kind of stuff. So I can do triangle waves as well. And I can just overwrite the same wave. Here's a triangle wave. You don't hear the pops on and off with this one. Then you've also got a random, which is pretty cool. I can randomize it. Random is a little bit, it's random, right? It's hard to control. You don't really know what it's going to do. But that's the whole point of random. Right? Okay, I just hit Command Z to undo all those. And you've got two other, I just want to point these out here. These other two pencil tools here. These pencil tools, Parabolic and S-Curve. When I first saw these, I thought, oh, cool. Pro Tools has added in the ability to curve your automation. Not so. You cannot curve the automation. These are for tempo adjustments, for tempo automation, which is kind of annoying that they have them in here with everything else. It is still for the pencil tool, so I get why they have it in here, but it has nothing to do with your automation. Unfortunately, it's for tempo changes, tempo automation, but not for other automation. So these don't do anything right now. So freehand, which is the normal pencil tool, line, triangle, square, and random are the ones that we can use for our automation. Some people will say, oh, well, you can't put curves in with Pro Tools. That sucks. I mean, I guess it's not that big a deal. If you want to put a curve, just draw a curve and stop being a whiny baby about it, right? Here, just draw a curve. Here's a curve. I just drew a curve. There you go. Curve. Problem solved. Just put a couple extra points in there. It's not that big a deal. That's what I used to always do when I was using Pro Tools all the time, was I would just draw curves in like that, and no problem. Now, the way to use our Smart tool with doing automation in is also really cool, and I actually prefer this to using the pencil tool sometimes. It depends on what I'm doing. But let's go ahead and do this with our kick drum here. Right, there's our kick drum without anything. I'm going to use it with the mute here. And actually, no, I'll use it with the volume because you can see how to utilize with the volume stuff. So if I wanted to get this kick drum out of here, I can just highlight it. This is using my Smart tool. Let me actually show you without the Smart tool how I would do it using individual tools. So the two main tools we're going to use right now are the selector tool and the trim tool. Okay, so I'm going to highlight it with the selector tool, and I use my trim tool here. And when I use the trim tool, see how it turns into like a little staple looking thing? And I click and I drag it straight down. And now it just got rid of that stuff for me. And I go back and I use my selector tool, go back to my trim tool, down. And I'm using my shortcuts. That's how I'm able to do it so fast. Okay, and you can see I can get rid of this stuff pretty well. Okay, so there we go. So now go ahead and put this over here. Right, pretty cool. Now, if I wanted to go back and make any kind of fades on these, I can use my pointer tool. So here's the pointer tool. And now with the pointer tool, I can actually click on these dots and move them around. There we go. See? I can click on the dots and move them around using the pointer tool. Like this, which is pretty cool. And you can also see that if I point and I just click, it's also going to add a point in. And if I want to remove a point, what I do is I hold down the Option key and I can get rid of points by holding down the Option key. It's like a little eraser tool. And there you go. That's our three main tools: the trim tool, the selector tool, and the pointer tool. But really, what I recommend is using these all with the smart tool. And the smart tool makes life a lot easier. You just gotta remember to mouse in the right area here, and that takes a little bit of getting used to. A lot of people, when they first start using the smart tool, they have problems with using things correctly, and you just gotta remember, stop, think, execute. You just got to slow down and kind of think, okay, I want to do this. I got to put my cursor in the right position, because that's really what people are usually the problem that people are making with this, is they're putting their cursor in the wrong place. So let me just show you this. Let me zoom in here a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this one. Let's continue using the volume tool. I'm going to highlight this one. I'm going to get rid of it by pulling it down. I'm going to turn the volume all the way down on it, down there. And let's go ahead and put in a little curve, a little point over here. To put in a point when I'm using the smart tool, I have to hold down my command key. When I do that, see, it puts a little plus sign there. I'm going to click here and it puts a point in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here. I'm going to hold down my option tool. Gracias. And I'm going to hold down my option key here, and I'm going to get rid of it like that. Boom, it gets rid of it. And there we go. Hold on one second. It just got rid of it. And now it made like a little fade up. And so as you can see, once you get really good at using your tools, you can do some really cool stuff with them. So I could go over here. I could say, oh, I want this one to be loud. I highlight it. I pull it back up. Let's move this one down a little bit. I just got to mouse over it and make it straight. There we go. Okay, cool. Now let's listen to this. Awesome. And I've got some automation in there. And I could go and I could do this with anything. If I want to get rid of all of this automation, I can use my selector tool and triple click just double click, sorry, because it's automation. Double click it and it deletes it. And that will get rid of everything within the clip. If I want to get rid of everything on the whole entire track, I can triple click. Awesome. How are we doing here? Let's go back and look at this stuff. Okay. Yeah, so you can copy, paste, or duplicate automation data. Double click with the select tool. We'll select all the automation within a clip on the visible lane. Triple click will select with the select tool. Will select all the automation on the track in the visible lane. So that visible lane thing is like, if I have volume automation going on here, let me just put a fade in here like this. So I got volume automation. Let's make it curvy for those of you who want it to curve a little bit. There you go. A couple points there to make a nice little curve. Okay. So if I want to do this, but I wanted to also make my kick drum mute on and off, well, I can go down here to the mute one, and I'll just go up here and make it muted and unmuted. There we go. I'm just highlighting it and just turning it down there. And now if we listen to it, we're going to hear the fade up over time, but also the mute and the unmute. And let me just do a little bit extra, couple extra mutes in here. Like go over here. There we go. Whoops. There we go. Boom. Okay. So I hit play. All right, it's a little bit hard to hear because it's like, I mean, I'm just putting mutes on top of fades. Let's do a pan thing here. Pan left, pan right. Now, one thing you'll notice is that, because we have this plugin here. Let's get rid of this plugin. Here we go. So what I just did was that panning had a pan left and a pan right, which is a Pro Tools thing. The reason why I had the pan left and pan right, but it only had a mono audio file here, is because I had that timeless thing on from when we were talking about the effects before. So turn that off, and we are good to go there. But now we've got one pan, which is easier to deal with. And I'm going to go ahead and pan this left and right using the let's see here. Let's do a sweep. Pan gradually from left to right as we get louder, and we'll go down here, pull that one down like that. There we go. Let me bounce out a little bit. Here we go. So we're going to start to hear this more and more as it fades up. There we go. You can hear the kick drum is on the right-hand side there, and I could go through and I could do some more kick drum fun stuff over here. like that. Boom. Oh, here we go. Here, let's put this one down. Like that. There we go. Cool. And if I start it from over here, you can hear the kick drum. If you have headphones on, you can hear it really well on the left and the right hand sides. So that's that. And so if we look at this, go over here, remember, you can see what kind of panning you've got, what kind of automation you've got going on with the volume, mute, and pan right there. Volume, mute, and pan. And that's going to show us our automation, like what's automated. So we can easily see what's going on there. Now, if I want to see all my automation for all my tracks at the same time, what I can do is I can hold down Option and change the view of the track, and it shows me all my automation lanes for all my tracks for that one. Right there, boom. Okay. So that's a way to easily kind of make that, to see different ones there. So let's go back over here and just talk about one more thing here that's really, really important. And this is, remember, it's this part right here. Remember, in Pro Tools, automation is king. Now, that's something we haven't actually talked about, so you don't need to remember it, you just need to know it. Automation is king in Pro Tools. This is very different from Logic, very different from Ableton Live. If you've already been doing automation in Ableton Live, then the way automation works in Pro Tools and Logic is different from how it works in Ableton Live. In Pro Tools and Logic, automation is king. What does that mean? That means that if you have an automation point on your track, you cannot then adjust that parameter. Check this out. Let's leave our volume on here. So we got our volume here for our kick drum. We hit go. And we can see over here, the fader is working here for my kick drum. It's because I have automation on it. What I want to do here is, let's say I want to make that kick drum louder. I just want to hear the kick drum. So I can click and hold it up. But if I let go, automatically it's going to get rid of it. Let me go ahead and just get rid of the automation on the other two, because that's kind of annoying. Get rid of that one and the panning. Okay, so go back to our automation on the volume here. I'm gonna make it go over time slower. Let's go over here, way over here. And just get rid of these. So we got a gradual ramp up over, what is that, 13, 12 bars. Okay, so got that there. If I want to just hear my kick drum, I can just turn it up. Whoops, unmute. Come on. I can turn up, but if I let go, it goes back down to that. The reason why that happens is because it's following the automation. Right? It's following that automation. Okay? And there's nothing I can do about that. The only thing I can do is to actually change the automation. So what does that mean? That means that in Pro Tools, automation is king. If you have any automation point on a track at all, it's going to stay at that level or that point, whatever it is. Let me just give you one more example of that. If I double click, I delete it. So right now I can adjust my kick to whatever. I can put it down here, I can put it up here. Look, I have no hands. I can set it up for wherever I want it to be. Okay, so that's because I don't have any automation on my track. But watch this. I put one point, hold down Command, click it, and now there's an automation point right there. Okay, one automation point. I'm not doing anything with the track. It's just an automation point. It's not actually doing anything interesting. I'm not doing a volume fade. Nothing really automation-y is happening. But check this out. If I go in here and I let go, it won't let me actually pull it down and leave it there. And the reason why is because now automation is existing on this track. Even though it's just one little point, it's on there. If I want to get rid of all the automation, I have to make sure I just triple click on the track, hit delete, and now it gets rid of the point for that one there. This is something that's very confusing for people a lot of the time. When people first start using Pro Tools, a lot of the time especially if they use write mode for writing stuff in, which we're going to talk about here in just a minute. If they're using write mode, they're going to end up with all these automation points that they didn't really want, and it's going to be confusing. So they're going to try to adjust their level, and they're going to be like, I can't adjust my level. What's going on? It's because you have one automation point on there that you don't see. I guarantee you that's going to be that's what is happening. Even if you don't want to believe it, even if you don't know where it is, trust me, if you're having troubles with your automation, if your Pro Tools is doing this kind of weird thing where you let go and it goes back up like this, like even if I put an automation point, even if I have an automation point like way over here on the side over here, right? And I zoom in, well, now it's not going to let me adjust that volume. The whole reason why is because there's an automation point. But if I go back over here, I'm going to look. There's no automation point. I mean, Tony, there's no automation point. See, there's no automation point. No automation points. Well, yeah, you're right. There's no automation points where you're looking. But if we go all the way over here to the right, 15 minutes later, there's the automation point right there. It doesn't matter where the automation point is. It just matters that there is an automation point. So you have to just be aware of that. Just be aware that sometimes you don't even remember that you did an automation point. You're just like, I didn't touch that volume. Well, you did. At some point, I promise you did. This happens to me too all the time. Like I'll be like messing with it and suddenly my volume will be doing like weird stuff. And I'll be like, I must have put an automation point in by accident. I did something kind of weird. It put an automation point in by accident. Okay. This just talks about some other shortcuts. Oh, one thing I do recommend is in your preferences. And it's in the notes. But in your preferences over here where it says setup, I recommend going into your setup preferences here and go to, what is it? Mixing automation. So go in here to the mixing tab here. And in here where it says automation, this one. After write pass, switch to and change that to touch. The default is latch. I highly recommend changing this to touch right there. It is in your notes, so you've got it right there in your notes. I recommend changing that because of this whole write thing, which I'm going to talk about right now. We're going to talk about write mode here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put everything back to waveform. Good to go. We're going to do stuff now for the whole drum bus, not just the individual sounds. Okay, so in the drum bus, we only have we've got volume, mute, pan left, pan right. So we only have these. We don't have all the other views that you've got with your audio tracks. And I'm going to go ahead and put on here a filter. Under modulation, we're going to put a filter. I'm using this filter here, vintage filter, because it's one that comes with Pro Tools. Now, we're just going to leave that filter alone for a second here. And we're going to go back over here to write mode. Here, write records all data. Where are we here? Yeah, okay. So, write mode, we haven't really talked about it, but it records all parameters. It's basically the same as touch and latch, except it records everything at the same time. So, let's go ahead and I'm going to get this filter here. Let's put the filter all the way up there, turn the resonance down. So it shouldn't really sound different. It doesn't sound any different right now. We're going to leave that alone. We're going to come back to that filter, okay? In the meantime, I'm going to use write mode. And I'm going to draw in some automation for my volume. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to hit play, we're going to do a fade. You can see it's happening there. If I let go, it looks like latch mode. Put it up. Find the right place. There we go. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and copy this in. Command C, paste it over here. Boom. Hit Command D a couple times to duplicate it so we can just clean that up. Okay, so now I just wrote automation in for my volume. And that's it, right? No. Because we were using we were using write mode, it actually also wrote information in, automation in for my pan, my mute, my pan left, my pan right, all that stuff there. You can see they're all yellow now. Remember, if it doesn't have any automation, they're going to be white. When it has automation, they're going to be yellow. So, okay, cool. Let's see where it is. Where is it? Well, it happens to be one little dot right there. Check that out. Oops. That one little dot by itself, hanging out by itself all the way over here at the end. Now, that's not a big deal, right? Well, it is if you want to mute stuff later. So if I want to go over here and I mute, oops, hold on a second. If I'm in read mode and I want to mute, and I click it, oh, it's actually, oh, interesting. With mute, it doesn't matter. With volume, it would matter. And panning, it matters. Panning, it's going to go back automatically. The mute isn't doing it for some reason, although it should. So any of these, we have one little point over here, and that one little point makes all the difference, especially in Pro Tools. So what I would have to do is I'd have to go through for each one of these and just double click and hit delete on these to turn them back white again. So I can get rid of them all, which really is a big waste of time. You don't really want to be doing all that for, it's just like, well, that's too bad. Write mode just does that. Oh, what's up, Dempsey? How you doing? Write mode just does that. So we want to be careful of that kind of stuff there. And not, basically what I say to people is don't use write mode. There's no real reason to use write mode unless there is. And I am going to show you a really cool reason to use write mode here. But for the most part, there's no real reason to use write mode. What do I have muted? I'll get my click track muted. Okay, cool. So unless you're doing something very specific, there's no real reason to use write mode. All right, so before we come back to write mode and why you would use write mode and some of the other, some other cool tips and tricks that I've got for you, let's talk about our automating our plugins. You've noticed here so far, I've got two plugins on this track. I've got the vintage filter. I've got the compressor. I'm not going to automate the compressor. Usually, you don't automate compressors, but a filter is something that I absolutely would automate. What if I wanted to do this over time? Right? I want to do a cool filter sweep, or I want to do some wobble things. Right? Well, if I want to do that, I can automate this cutoff button right here, this cutoff knob right here. But if I look over here on my track, volume, mute, pan left, pan right, there's nothing there to automate my my cutoff frequency for my filter here. Well, this is going back to what we learned about the other day, and I did show you this, but I showed it to you very, very briefly. Up here where it says auto, if I click on this auto enable button, now it pulls up a window that gives me all of my parameters that I can automate. I have to put these into this column over here, which is my automate column. So I'm going to double click on my cutoff and double click on my resonance because those are the two that I want to automate. And now they end up over here. If I wanted to do some for my compressor for whatever reason, I could do that. If you have other plugins in here, you can do it. I hit OK. And now check this out. These two parameters get a little green dot next to them. Sometimes it's a little green dot, sometimes it's a green box. Depends on the plugin. And I also want to say that this only happens with Pro Tools plugins. It doesn't happen with third-party plugins. Some third-party plugins, yes, but most of them, no. Okay. So now if I go in here and I change this to some kind of a write mode, right here under read, I got to put it into touch mode. Check this out. Now those little green dots turn red. The reason why they're red is because now they are record enabled. So I hit go on this, and I pull this down. Cool. And I can do some, right? Awesome. Okay. And if I go over and look at my volume, once I turned it on, you can see the thing turns on down here. And now I've got it. There we go. Boom, and we can look at it. We can say, oh, cool. And we can listen to it. And you can see the little knob is changing right here. Put this touch mode back into read mode. There we go. Pretty awesome stuff, eh? Neat. Awesome. Okay. Sorry. Put that back in. Cool. So that's how we can automate parameters in here. If I wanted to automate my resonance, I can go down here to my resonance, and you can see how it's white because I haven't done anything to it. And I can say, all right, I want the resonance to grow up over time. I'm just going to put a point there. I'm going to put a point there. Let's get it right there. And we can see now the resonance is now yellow as well, orangey yellow. And we're good to go. And I hit go. And you can see my resonance is now moving over time because I put an automation lane in there. Awesome. Really good stuff there. Cool. So that's automation stuff. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this in here. I'm going to go back to my filter cutoff and double click. There we go. Delete all that stuff as well. Okay. So that's how we can automate individual parameters. Now, something about this in here is if I open up my, let's open up my filter here. If I want to automate all the parameters at the same time, or if I want to automate like a little bit easier way, I don't love like clicking on this box here and having to go over here and do this. And with the native plugins that come with Pro Tools, you don't have to actually click on that box there to automate individual parameters. What you can do is you can use the claw. The claw is Control, Option, and Command. Control, Option, and Command. I hold down the claw, and I click on Cutoff. And it pulls up this little dialog that says disable automation cutoff for cutoff, or open the plugin automation, whatever. Or I can go over here. I can turn it on for this one. Enable automation. It gets a little. Oh, it didn't get the little. Why didn't that? Interesting. It should have gotten a little box or something. Huh. Weird glitches. I think these are glitches. It should have gotten a little box around it, a little green box. That's okay, whatever. I know it's automatable. So I can just hold down the claw and click on various parameters and enable them. It's that easy. Or I can also disable them by doing the same thing, clicking on this. If I wanted to make all of my parameters automatable all at once, I can just hold down the claw, the Control, Option, Command, and click on this auto enable box. So I click on it like that, and now they all become automatable at the same time. Or I can turn them all off like that. So that's what we can use. That's like a really cool shortcut that we can use. It doesn't work on all plugins. It doesn't work on third-party plugins. Some of them it does. Most of them it doesn't. So it just case by case. One last thing in here is a safe button here. If I put some automation in, let's go ahead and put it in touch mode and automate everything there. Awesome. And I've got some automation in there. And I just want to make sure that I absolutely do not overwrite that automation ever again. I can click the safe button. And now it won't let you do any automation changes to that plugin. So it's a plugin case by case basis. See, safe is on. Everything turns green. Even if my track is in touch mode, I can't touch it. I can't do anything to it. I can touch it, but as soon as I let go, it's going to go back to following that automation. Okay, so that's what that safe button does. That button is a really good friend if you are doing automation here. And then one last thing is if I want to see my automation for a parameter really quickly, I can hold down Control and Command and click the parameter, and it will show me that parameter track in Pro Tools. So if I want to see my volume, go over here and click on this, and it shows me my volume, which is boring. If I want to see my resonance, I can see my resonance. If I want to see my output, I can see my output, my mode, all these different things here. But if I go back to my cutoff, we can see that one's actually doing stuff. And that's just holding down Control and Command and clicking the parameter. I'm not sure if that's actually in the notes because I didn't I think that's something you should definitely write down, though. I think that might be not in the notes. Yeah, I think it's not in the notes. Okay. Let's go back into Pro Tools here. And our final thing, and then we're going to take a break here. There's two things that we're going to do before we take this break. One thing is automation, the automation window, which allows you to disable automation parameters, and then also automation tips and tricks, including why we would use the write mode. Like, why do I use write mode these days? Usually I use touch or latch mode, but when would I use write mode? There actually is a really cool thing you can do with Pro Tools that you can't do with other things. So I'm going to go ahead and reset this back, and let's go ahead and turn on my grid. Let's put the grid back to 1 bar. I'm gonna just set this grid for grid mode. Let's do a 4-bar loop. Yeah, 4-bar loop. Okay, so we just got that 4-bar loop that's gonna happen there, and I'm gonna show you some cool stuff with this. So first things first, the window here. Go to Window and go to Automation, and it's gonna pull up this automation window here. And this automation window has a couple of little buttons on it that are really, really useful. You've got the right suspend, which suspends all the automation. Basically turns the automation off for the whole everything in Pro Tools. So if you want to not have any automation happening in Pro Tools, you can hit that suspend button. Then you have this write enable section down here. And this write enable section has different areas. It's got the plugin, it's got volume, it's got pan, it's got mute over here, and then it's got send volume, send pan, and send mute. And you can see that my screen has a little dialog that pops up here if you just mouse over it. If you just leave your mouse on top of something, it'll pop that dialog box up. What these do is these allow me to enable or disable that in write mode. Okay, so it says write enable. So if I turn all this stuff off and I just leave my plugin turned on, that means that if I use write mode, it's not going to overwrite my volume, my pan, my mute, or my send volume, my send pan, or my send mute on any track in the whole session. So this is actually a really useful thing to do, especially with this cool trick that I'm about to show you. Okay, so when they're red, they're on. When they're gray, they are off. So gray is safe, red is danger. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to show you this cool trick. I'm going to go ahead and move the compressor down here. Let's put the filter right there, even though I'm not going to use the filter right now. And we're going to, right in the middle here, right after the filter, we're going to put in the Sci-Fi plugin. That is the modulation plugin. It is right down here, Sci-Fi. And the Sci-Fi plugin, I'm using that because it does some cool stuff. It's easy to hear the differences. So remember what we did the other day. We talked about our presets and our plugins. Go in here, go to my factory default here, and whoops, click on this. I'm just going to click through. And I got some pretty cool little settings there that's easy to hear. So what we're going to do is we're going to use write mode to write in all those changes. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to highlight this first bar here. And I'm going to set it back to my default settings, factory default settings. And let's just get set up here. I'm going to turn on all my parameters here. I can click on this and I can just hit, hey, hold down shift and click them. I'm just going to hit add all of them. Or I can just do the easy way. I can hold down my claw, control, option, and command, and click on this, and they all get little boxes around them. See that? That means they're all automatable. Now, I'm going to check and make sure that only my plugin is write enabled. I don't want everything else to be written. I don't want any volume or panning or anything like that to be written in. And I'm just going to highlight this first measure here. And because I have on my link, timeline, and edit selection here, it's going to just go ahead and it's going to write in my default settings into this little area right here. So hit go. There's not even anything in here. And there we go. We're good to go. Now, one thing I forgot to mention earlier is that when it loops back around, it changes from write mode into touch mode. That's so it doesn't accidentally overwrite something that you've done. All right, so next, I'm just gonna let this play, and as it plays, I'm gonna switch I'm gonna switch through these, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start off with alien. Let's start off with a bad radio. There we go. Start with bad contact actually, and then we'll flip through. Okay. So when I hit go, I'm in write mode. I don't have to be touching anything. It's automatically going to write any of these changes in. So let's check this out. And as I'm going, it's actually going to make all these changes. And back to default. Okay, cool. So if I go through and I look at all these, you can see the sci-fi, all of these are in here. They're all yellow, orange, yellowy orange. Okay, and that shows that they are all being written on. So if I go back to read mode, and I'm going to select one at random, whatever frequency here, we can see my frequency has been written. And if we listen to it, the effect is going to change based on where I made my change as it played. So this is pretty cool. If you want to write in kind of all of your new parameters and stuff, this is a really cool thing that you can do. I love this trick. I learned this trick a while back, I think from like watching YouTube or something, like years and years and years ago, or maybe a article or something like that. And I love it. It's just a really cool thing that you can do. Really, you can do it in Pro Tools and you can do it in Logic. You cannot do it in Ableton Live or well, actually, I don't know about any other program. I know you can't really do it the same way in Ableton Live. There are things that you can kind of do, but if I'm doing stuff like this in Ableton Live, I'm recording audio. I'm not doing it with automation. I'm recording audio because it just doesn't do it. All right. So one last thing. Let's go ahead and put on this filter here, this filter. I'm going to put my cutoff here. Filter, boom. Let me just say one thing here. Usually when I'm doing automation stuff in Pro Tools, I don't like to turn everything on. It's like too much for me. So I usually just turn on the parameter that I'm using, because that way I'm not getting, it's not super cluttered up on my screen. So I'm just going to turn these both on. So now if I want to see that automation lane for that one, it's just really easy to see it. Okay. So one thing here is if I want to put a fade down, but then I want to return back to my original position, and this is the notes. It's right here in the notes. Always insert the first and last automation points first, and then set the adjustment point. So what do I mean by this? Well, if I want it to fade down and then fade back up, or if I want the cutoff filter to sweep down and sweep back up, what I would do, if I don't know this tip, what I would do is I'd click where I want to start the fade, and I'd go over here and I'd put the thing down here, and then I'd go back over here and I'd put it back up. And that's all well and good, but what if everything started like right in here? Over here, like this. And I want to make sure I get it back to this one point. So I have to click over here. Okay, 4.95. Pulls down to 4.92. So I can hold down my command key rather, and it works okay. But that takes up time. I don't want to take up that much time. So an easy way to do this, there's actually a couple of easy ways to do this, but let me just show you my main one here. I'm going to put this here at 4, whatever, like that. I put in my first point here, and I put in my last point where I want it to come back, and then I put the point in the middle where I want it to get down to. And now I don't have to, I've like locked in my beginning, my end levels. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do any kind of weird stuff. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it that's actually pretty cool is I highlight this, pull it down, and just get rid of these end points. Oops. Oh, actually put a point in the middle. And you can see this isn't quite as cool as the other one, actually, now that I'm doing it. I thought it might be cooler, but I don't usually do it like that. I usually do it this other way. If I'm doing a fade out or a fade up, I'll usually do it like this. So I just highlight, pull down, and then just get rid of one point, and it gets rid of it. or if I want to do a fade up or a cut off up, something like that. But one more time, I just put a point at the beginning, a point at the end, so lock those into place, and I put the point in the middle. And now it's messing with my filter. You can see the filter is moving right there. And now it's going to come back up. And you can hear it's doing all the sci-fi changes in the background. So we got multiple things being automated at the same time, which is pretty cool stuff. All right. Okay, another trick that's really cool is do your volume automation with the trim plugin, not on the track fader. Put the trim plugin at the end of your effect chain and do your volume automation with the trim plugin. The reason why I do it like this is because I like to have my volume fader available for just quick mixing stuff. So what I would do is I'd put a trim plugin on here. Let's put this here. Here's my trim plugin. Remember, trim is multi-mono. Go to other, trim, there we go, boom. Go to my trim plugin here. And I'm just gonna automate everything. So go here to see my trim. And now, if I wanna do a fade up or a fade out or whatever, I can add the fade up or fade out in. There we go. Cool beans. So I got that there. And now it's going to do my fade up to 0. But if I wanted to adjust my overall volume of my track, I can. Oh, where is it? Not that one. This one. So I can adjust the volume of the track overall because I don't have any automation on that fader. So I really like to use this. And basically what it's doing is it's using the trim automation as a relative fader, and the regular volume fader is your absolute fader. For those of you who are pretty good with Logic, you'll know what I mean by this, because this is a feature that's in Logic, but we don't have it in Pro Tools. Like this regular home version of Pro Tools doesn't have it. Pro Tools Ultra does have this feature, but the regular version you have to use this trim plugin trick. But since you know this trim plugin trick now, you're good to go. It's pretty easy. All right. All this stuff here at the end is just some notes about automation on plugins, which we just talked about, but I'll just go over these real quick. Auto enable the plugins allows you to automate parameters within the plugin. This is underlined in red. You must enable parameters in Pro Tools in order to automate them. Okay, so we can automate a parameter. When you automate a parameter, a green dot or a box appears in the plugin for that control. This only really works for Pro Tools plugins and not, hold on one second, stop it, and a few third-party plugins. Claw, you can claw click certain parameters, and then let's see here. This is all stuff we talked about before the other day, so I'm not going to go into this again. Yeah, and the automation snapshot. This is talking about the automation snapshots. It allows you to record the plugin presets into my automation, my sessions automation, and then insert the plugin on the track. All this, these are all the steps that we have here. And then plugin automation, the save button is down here. So if you've got some automation written in, you don't need to worry about it. Cool. And this here at the end is the draw tool. And you can do freehand line, triangle, all the stuff we talked about in the beginning. It's in the notes. So I highly recommend going through these and checking these out, reading these when you're watching the video, but you're going to see there's like, crossover and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and we're going to take a break of 10 minutes.